Are you ready? Oh, yeah! Oh, yeah! You ready? Give me 2 knees, 2 cups, and who? Ready? Who? Ready? Who? Husky one! Husky five!
Welcome back to the Huskies Pulse podcast. I'm your host, Clarence Nelson. Today, we're in the den with two legendary figures from the Edmonton Huskies. These veteran football players helped shape the legacy of one of the top teams in the Canadian Junior Football League. As longtime members of the Huskies Alumni Association, these men have seen it all, from the grit of the game day battles to the lasting brotherhood forged on the field. We'll dive into their unforgettable moments and in uniform and the evolution of the team over the decades, and take some pride in what has yet to be coming in the future for the Huskies' life. Welcome, fellas. We have this morning, welcome again, Bob Dula and Dan Butcher. How are you guys doing this morning?
Doing good here, Clarence. Doing good. Thanks, buddy.
Good. And Dan, you joined us a second time here, so welcome back. You must be a sought-after figure.
No, I don't think that.
Super. We have a couple things to talk about this morning. I hope you've had your coffee because we're going to talk all about football.
Good.
And that's one of my favorite topics this morning. So speaking of football, you know, we have a lot of sports in Canada that focus on winter particularly. And I enjoy talking about football because it often doesn't get the attention it needs. I want to ask you fellas, and maybe I'll ask Dan this question first. What drew you to football? Why did you start playing football here in Alberta?
Well, actually, for me there, Clarence, it goes back to when I was it's in your upbringing, right? So for myself, I had 5 sisters, no brothers. So I never, ever experienced brotherhood of having a family brother until actually I graduated from high school in St. Paul Regional High, and I moved to Edmonton and watched a practice. Went to go watch a Husky practice, and John Belmont actually was the head coach his first year, and he seen me standing on the sidelines with my cousin, and he came over and chatted me up, and he said, "Get your butt down there tomorrow at 4 p.m. We'll get you a medical, and get you some equipment and see what you." I said, "Well, I can try." Well, in John Belmont's way, JB. Okay, I love the man dearly. So, but he, in his way, he born and bred here in Alberta. But I'll tell you, that southern drawl he's got can get pretty thick at times, right? But I love the man. But he walked up to me. He said, "Hello, son. How you doing?" "Pretty good, sir." My dad was an army sergeant, so everything was yes, sir, no, yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. I says, "Good, sir." He says, "You ever play football?" I says, "No, sir." He said, "Would you like to?" I says, "Well, I could try." Pretty apprehensive because that's a big undertaking, for someone who never ever touched football before. So anyway, he said, "Be here tomorrow," like I said, and we went from there. And I had to leave after 1 week in the main camp because my dad got cancer, and he was in the hospital for surgery, and I had to go back to the farm and put the hay up. But John Belmont, he said, "Well, you're always welcome here, Dan, if you want to come back after you put the hay up." And after just 1 week of 2-day training camp, Clarence, I had such an emptiness in my heart from not being around my 75 new brothers that I'd experienced, And after 1 week, I said, "I got to go back." And that was it.
That is a tremendous story.
That's what happened for me.
And that's what football's about.
Yeah.
It's about the brotherhood. Bob, you've played football in Edmonton a little bit, and you've been around the Huskies for a while. What drew you to this sport? What do you like about football?
Well, I used to watch, of course, Jackie Parker, the big guy, and that was my big feeling with the Eskimos. And then I went to Jasper Place, and I played football there. And Jim Down and I were really good buddies, and Alex Bazik and some of those guys. And we were getting ready for camp, and I blew my knee out, so I never got to play for the Huskies. But I was down down with them all the time and had fun. Hanging around everybody was a great experience for me. And
Absolutely. And so, my understanding is you enjoyed the position of running back for the time that you did play. Why did you play running back instead of another position?
So, believe it or not, I was pretty damn fast. And it doesn't take a lot in high school to beat people,
Mm-hmm.
Turn your head and run like hell.
Good.
Actually, Clarence, I'd like to speak to that, though, for a second, because this is the one fantastic thing about this particular sport, okay? Grew up on the farm, never had no money, but boy, I'll tell you, we always had plenty of groceries on the table. I'll tell you that. What I found is that you didn't have to have money to play this sport. You come into the sport, and it was reasonable back then. Even tuition back then, just to give you an example, I had a lot of my teammates back then, and they were going to university because they didn't have any career or job lined up. You got to remember, we're all just young men. I mean, I started when I was 17, so the oldest ones there were 22. Okay, so you're trying to find your way in life. I came here, and so they found me a job after a few weeks because John Belmont, he heard that I was sleeping in my car, because I was, but that's not a huge stretch for a country boy. We're survivalists. It's not a big deal. I had a nice big car, and 1971 Plymouth Fury 2 two-door. The back seat on that thing was like a king-size bed, brother. So it wasn't a hardship, But the thing is, we came in, and we were all young, and we all had dreams, and and that's the thing. You enjoyed your brothers, and you were all chasing the same dream. But the great thing about this sport, I started to tell you, was that there's a spot for every particular athlete. Because this sport isn't about the athlete, but it's about the mantle, what they're going to take away from this and have 50 years later with your brothers and your alumni, stuff like that. Okay, but there was a spot for a big, chubby, tubby farm boy that had never, ever jogged a mile in his life. Mm-hmm. I didn't come from that sports world. Mm-hmm. But it was and I'll tell you, don't think I didn't throw up in culmination at the end of practice. I've never ever done it before. But you know what? I had 75 brothers that were all cheering me, doing Texas wind sprints around the perimeter of the field. And throwing up and running, it's not easy, mm-hmm. But those brothers got me through my running, and so that was
good stuff. Bob, would you agree with some of the things that Dan said about the sport and why you've been drawn to the sport, but why you still with the Huskies today?
Well, it's still, when I couldn't play football anymore, I had some friends that I mentioned there, Jim Dallin, and so I faded away from football for quite a while. And then when my son started playing, he played at JP. And we took him out of, not at school, but we only let him play in grade 10, and then we moved him down to the Huskies. Mm-hmm. He's a pretty good ball player. And then you get down in and you get it back into your system, and that was it. I'm still going with it.
For sure. What do you have written down there? Can you tell me some information about
Well, when we
your
were
history?
talking, I was talking about when I first decided to do stuff, Bob Lindbergh was here, and I'd come down and watch practice, mm-hmm. and I'd see Bob. And I come in one day, and he come running out with a cardboard box, and he says, "Here, it's yours." And I said, "What?" He said, I can't do this no more. So I had a cardboard box. It had some paperwork in it. I knew the club was in really bad shape, and
so you took over at that point?
Unfortunately, yes, I did. I didn't know it was going to be a 30-year job.
Wow.
And so he said, "There's a few things you got to know. We're traveling. You need some jerseys. You got to find some jerseys." And I just kind of took a hold and started going.
So you became the GM?
I was the GM.
But Bobby already was a leader in terms of his business and everything. So
sure.
President, everything. Yeah. There was I had no help.
Jack of everything.
Yeah. So.
What year was that? How long ago was that?
That was probably 92.
Wow.
No, it would have been earlier than that because you.
I think it was probably early 80s.
Yeah, it would have been late 80s, so Bobby, probably because you hired Popey and I, remember? And that was 1990. We started Popey and I we were there for a couple.
Yeah, but I think.
So that would have been.
So we're talking like 34 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, you've been there a long time, Bobby. That building's there because of you.
Yeah. So I mean, it was. I had to get. So when we got going.
Yeah.
We needed money. And there was a casino coming up, and I know the club was busted, and so I went to the bank. I found out which bank we dealt with, because it was on the checks. So I went up to made an appointment with the manager, And I told him I'm Bob Bula, and I own Eskimo Excavators, and I'm working with Huskies now. We need some money. Like, what do we need?
For sure.
And I said, I'm gonna need some more. If you're gonna stay with us, you're gonna have to work with me, and you're gonna have to. I'll never screw you. You can check me out with my company, but we need money. You know, we're we're $53,000 in the hole.
Yep.
And we had a casino coming up, and in them days you had to get the money, haul it down to the bingo hall, and then the truck picks it up and takes it
Yep. Manual deposits.
in. So I BS'd my way through, and we got the money for the casino. We found enough people to work, and we come out of there we paid our overdraft. We had $6,000 in the pocket.
Wow.
But that doesn't
last for long.
No.
Because the bills keep coming.
Bills keep coming.
And the players keep playing and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Last year, my eye was really opened up there when the Winnipeg Rifle travel, the road trip there, that just flight alone, $30,000. That's a big dollar item, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
You know.
And if you're going to do it right, you have to do those things. You have to invest, and you have to have that prepared way in advance. So these are things that happen off season.
Yeah.
It's not a 2-month
That's right.
job. This is generally a full year
in
commitment,
advance.
and year after year. Am I right?
Yeah. No, so then I needed help.
Yeah.
And there was really nobody down there right now that was, at that particular time, was going to help me.
Mm-hmm.
And so a real good friend of mine, Gordon Salmon, he worked at AGT, and he was an accountant. And I said, okay, come on down for a while for the Huskies. So I got her, and then there's a lady, Phyllis, son played for the Huskies, and she was a real nice lady.
Don't remember his last name, but Jason
Yeah.
was the son. He was linebacker for me.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
Good
she
player.
wanted to help. So, I mean, when you want to help, you don't chase anybody away.
Yeah.
So she came in, and we rounded up the parents, and we did the casino.
Yep.
And we had some money left over, but that's not that much money for a football club. And now we got to get coaches, and we got to decide. I didn't know that these guys get paid, but they want at least $1 a month or something, silly things like that.
Yeah, lots of logistics involved. There's lots of planning involved.
But we started to get some people.
Yeah.
And people saw that we were organized, starting to get organized, and then we got more we got some guys come back that Mike Yurchuk, he was on the board before, but then he started coming down. Curtis Craig, he was just finishing school. He was down in Calgary just finishing whatever he was, law, I guess.
Yep.
And then he came up here, and we got him on the board, and then you could see it was slowly coming together.
Yeah.
And we got some few people on the board. That workers, because you got to be a worker. That was the start of everything.
That is terrific. And since that time, they've continued with the same momentum that you built back then.
Yeah.
And 30 years later, we are where we are.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so let me ask you, during that time, so you were GM for a number of years. Can you think of a memorable time, either yourself or Dan, when something stood out, whether it be an accomplishment that the team made, or you got to a certain level in the playoffs, or anything like that? What stands out during that time, after you built the program the way it was, the way it became, or were there some good successes that you went, wow, that is terrific?
I want to touch that, and I'm going to tell you the lead up and the build up to the two consecutive championships, Canadian championships.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because that all started back like when Bobby and them were, it started back then in 1990 when you hired Popey and I, and for back then, eh? So that was a start, I would say. And now after, so literally 14, 15 years, because you won a 205 and 04 and 05, wasn't it?
04 and 05, yeah.
Yeah, 04 and 05, yeah. So, 14, 15 years later, that was as a result of what started back in 1990 and that era, right?
Those seeds were planted in
That's
the 90s,
right,
and you saw it grow in
So,
04 and 05.
As an alumni then, an older alumni, it just gave great pleasure going and watching, a team that you gave your heart and soul. We all gave our heart and souls to actually win the championship again. It was a great 2 years for us.
Well, to get to when we were rolling, we had a pretty good football club.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was always Saskatoon coming in and kicking us in the ass and
yeah.
boom, boom. But this one year, you could just feel something,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and it felt good. So we went to Saskatoon for the championship game. The coach for Saskatoon, every time we lost to him, he'd come over and pat me on the head. Well, Bobby, just keep trying. So when we beat him, I ran across that goddamn field, and he's a pretty big guy, and I said, just keep trying and you're going to get there. That felt so good. You know, it just felt so good. It was unbelievable.
Oh my goodness.
So.
Good. That is good to hear and good to feel those accomplishments, because those are important wins. And you know, the small wins that lead up to that are just as important. It was the journey as well.
Yeah.
Yes, you want to win games, but you get there in all sorts of different ways and directions. So thank you for sharing that. When it comes to the CGFL, it's been around for a long time, and I think last year the Edmonton Huskies celebrated 70 years.
Yeah.
So we're one of the longest members of the CGFL. How do you see things have changed since that time? Things are different now. What do you see as the either different in football or different in the CGFL? How are things different when you come to a game now versus back then?
You want to feel that?
Well,
one,
right now, the kids are different.
Yeah.
Way different. And everything is not how it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
Their philosophy and how they work. And it's so darn hard to get things going because everything's so costly. Our football club is expensive as hell.
Yeah.
And to get good people and raise money and then have the players appreciate the clothes they're driving, the pants they're wearing, the helmets and everything. And to abuse it, well, it upsets me. But I still like them looking like a Husky.
Yeah.
Not one stock off and one on and on the sideline. You got to be a Husky, a dog. And I think we got to wait for that a little bit, but I'm sure that's going to change.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. It's looking the part, playing the part, and being
and
professional.
And you're a Husky.
Yeah, you're a Husky.
You know what? Another thing here, guys, and we really need the players to realize this. Okay, playing at that level of ball, to have your uniforms washed for you, clean uniforms, and you're not stinking and reeking and everything else. I mean, I got to remember back when I played Huskies 77 through 81 there, nobody washed your uniform. You washed your own stuff, and you were responsible for everything yourself.
Yeah.
And if you weren't looking sharp on game day, somebody's going to mention it to you.
Absolutely. Now, having said that, as well as I do, the players come from all across the province and the prairies, and they also come from different backgrounds. Right. Dan was from the farm, and other people are from the cities. Now, in the CGFL and the Huskies, they have players who maybe just came from high school. Some of them are in university or college. Some of them are working. And you're bringing a group together that is from various different programs. How does the Huskies, or how did the Huskies back then, support those people that when they needed that support to get to practice? And Dan mentioned that he had a coach that gave him a place to stay instead of his car. How did you guys help those people that are either going into school or working or otherwise trying to play the sport at the same time?
Well, every player, when we registered, we'd bring him into the office, and Curtis would be in there with me, or somebody would be in there, and we'd ask him. Look, first of all, they say, we can't pay our dues. Okay, how are we going to work on this here? Do you have a job? Do you have a place to stay? No. Okay, so we'd get his name, find out where he is, if we could find a border for him, or we'd have him find jobs for him.
Yep.
Anything to do to keep him there, we would try.
And just a couple of few of the names back then, these were just names to us coming in. And next thing you know, they're saying, well, call Don Savage. Here's his number. Call. And there were half a dozen of these people from the community that, they could all line you up with jobs. They had me within a week or two. They had me unloading boxcars out at 170th Street there at the Brick Warehouse.
For sure.
We probably had a dozen of the players from when I was playing there that we all unloaded boxcars at the Brick Warehouse. But once again,
we got a lot of people, a lot of kids' jobs, but also the way some of the kids operate in getting better, they don't want to work.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're lazy, they're late for the job, and you can't ask you, can you hire these two kids for 7 o'clock and they roll in at 8:30? Well, first of all, I can't phone these guys again.
Mm-hmm.
Second
No,
of
you're
all,
burning up a bridge.
they're not
burning
gonna
a
do
bridge.
nothing.
You know,
So,
favor.
and that happened a lot.
Yeah.
And but you keep trying.
Absolutely.
Keep trying to get a guy a job.
Yep.
And then when a guy does get a job and works hard, he thanks you forever. You know.
And that's a friendship.
Oh yeah, and then, you know, you see him 10 years later. I remember the job. Thank you very much. Thank you.
And they can do the same for others.
And hopefully it'll
Exactly.
work. It'll work. Yeah.
And that's where the alumni comes in as well.
Yeah.
You know, you're not finished as a Husky when you finished being a player or some sort of support position, coaching or otherwise. There's room, like Dan said, there's room in this sport for everyone. There's room in the organization for all.
Yes.
And you don't have to be a player. You can do all sorts of things. You can have a giving role.
Yeah.
Well, just like Dan was saying, our alumni now, in the last 3-4 years, is just the best. But before, years ago, we didn't have an alumni.
Actually, we weren't
organized.
Yeah, I was about 8 years, I think, when
Yeah.
Larry Tibble asked me to come on board there about 8 years ago. And I said, well, but it was for the alumni board. And I said, well, okay, I will sit on the alumni board, but I don't want to have anything to do with the operations board. Okay, I didn't want to get involved in that. It's now since changed and in a good way,
Yeah.
because our relationship now between the two boards, because we're working more together to help each other. Because as an alumni, I'm very proud of our alumni society, what we've done and accomplished here. We're up to almost $200,000. That's all self-funding now with the Edmonton Community Foundation. I believe we have 8 or 10 $1,000 scholarships
Yeah.
that we give forever now, year after year, to year-end banquets, right?
Yeah.
And it makes a big difference when
And we've been able to
everybody's
help out,
happy.
yeah, with some cash for different other
yeah.
things.
The blood is flowing. The organization
Yeah,
is
and
moving.
before there was always a little tense, but now it's the last couple 3-4 years we're Huskies.
Yes.
Yeah,
You
we're all
can-
one. Yeah,
You
kinda
can get
like-
to where you want to be.
Yeah.
And just a heads up, at the end of this discussion, I'm going to ask you what your favorite quotes are. So because now we're thinking about philosophy and things. But let me ask you this: we talk about camaraderie and chemistry and team building, and going from where Huskies used to be and then winning championships. How important do you think, as either a player, a coach, administrator, how important is camaraderie and chemistry among the players and the coaches? How important is it?
99%.
It is what it is.
You got to have it. Players got to
Yeah,
like the
attitude.
players, and on the field everybody's one. But you got to like each other. You got to
Well, actually,
and work together.
you don't even have to like
like,
each other,
but
but
you
you have
gotta
to
play together.
respect
Yeah.
each other enough that you're willing to play for that individual that you may not have thought that highly of. But you know what? He's a Husky brother, and I want to come out of this game giving him a win, and I want him to give me
Yeah.
a win. So I want his effort to be there. I want my effort to be there for him. And as long as we're all stay on the track of a common goal, then you start to be powerful.
So that effort and attitude builds trust. Am I right?
It does.
Well, and you can feel it. Like when we were winning all the time, the dressing room was different. Practice was different. Everybody had an extra gear in their step, and we wanted it. We preached we want to win. You know what? You can just taste it and feel it. And,
I'll give you an
and
example.
once you get a taste of that, then the kids get a taste of it, and they got to pass it down to the next crew, and like it's
Yeah, something to look forward to.
yeah.
So I coached with the Huskies 90 through 94 with Dirchek and stuff. Hey, and then I stepped down from there, just too busy with the young family and job and all. And then I picked up coaching in the high school at Austin O'Brien, where all my 4 kids went to. Anyway, I was coaching there. We'd gone down to play an exhibition game down at Carstairs, okay? So we went down there, and you got to remember, down there, they take their football pretty seriously. So they had remember that movie, Friday Night Lights, where all the people were all shining their car lights and all that? That's what was going on down there, right? And then, of course, I always believed in being a clean player. Tough player, hard player, but clean player. And they'd taken some cheap shots on us. our star running back there, Dexter Jenkins, he was out that
Yeah.
night with on a concussion. I said, I checked him out on the sideline. I said, sorry, Jex, you're done tonight, eh? But just things like that, but so we were down and on the sidelines. And as a coach, you get to know because you're reading everybody's body language. As a coach on the sidelines, you have your unit that you're responsible for, but you're also watching and how it all meshes and comes together. Boys I could see that physically their body language, they were sinking a little, eh? And I lit up on the sidelines. I says, is there one player on this bench that does not believe we will win this game? This was in the third quarter. You know what? And I come hard on them, a few of them. You know what? The boys, they perked up. We went on. We came home with a win. Good. But, it's important as a coach. You got to read that sideline constantly because, a lot of stuff's happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of players, they got to keep them up because they're only going to be as good and as effective as their confidence is in that game.
Absolutely.
So
there's a philosophy I've learned a little while back, and it's helped me. And maybe you can say yes or no whether this applies to football. Winning, the word win, WIN, is sometimes people focus on the score and the penalties and the referees and the time. But I think WIN is an acronym. It stands for three things. What's important now?
Yeah.
And that to keep people focused on what the task is. The wins will come over time, and building the program, investing in themselves, inspiring others to do the same. Eventually the wins will happen. They'll take care of themselves.
Yeah.
It might take a few years, but if you do know what's important right now, what's in front of you, and don't get distracted, and there's a lot of distractions these days. For both players and coaches that, social media and all that other stuff can get in the way. And it's important for us as people that have been around the sport for a long time to make sure that doesn't happen.
And it's the long game, not the short game, right? It's the long game. Because you know what we're going to get out of, and all these young players are going to get out of this organization is while they're an athlete and stuff, those same things transcend into your day-to-day life when you're 50, 60, 70 years old,
Absolutely.
You're still hanging out with these old guys, It's because there's fun. You all share a common goal, and it's just fun being around the guys.
So let's pretend here a moment, and we'll think about we're talking to a young person who's maybe in junior high, going to high school, and they're thinking about maybe playing after that.
Yeah.
What advice would you give those people back then? What would you give to yourself if you could talk to yourself back then in high school to prepare you for sport at this level?
Well, we used to tell everybody, we'd bring the high school kids in and tell them about junior football, what it's all about, because they really don't know. We tell them when we travel and how we practice every day, and we run it like a professional club. We try to do everything right, so it looks good. We have to look good. When you look good, you feel good, you play good. Now teach them what we in practice. You're here to practice. Sure, we have times when we gibbets and fool around, but when it's time to go, boys, we got to go and practice, learn, and if you really don't want to do that, then you're in the wrong place. You better go. And we're going to find somebody, but you got to, if you're here and you're given your time, you got to learn and practice as hard as you can. Do as you're told. You meet friends for life there, and it's a pleasure to be there, to play there. Look at Butch. He's 40 years ago, 50 years ago, or 100 years ago. He's still talking.
Yeah.
So that's what we tried to teach people.
Yeah, and they have to provide some investment.
Yeah.
And and letting them know that investment is something that will pay off. Just look at the people around you. Look at the club that's been developed. Look at the history that the Edmonton Huskies has. And to be a part of that is something special. And to want to be part of that something. Get to practice on time, even though it might be hard in your schedule. Helping out behind the scenes before and after practice.
Yeah.
Getting to the game at the time that needs to be done. I've done a few interviews with players, and when I ask them about pregame preparation, you can tell the ones that care about doing well and representing well, because they refer to the preparation for a game happening way before the game itself.
Well, it's the night before, even with the
It happens during the week. It's getting
everything,
sleep. It's getting ready. It's not. It's a little bit about diet. It's a little bit about working out. But it's all the things combined
the
together.
lifestyle.
The lifestyle.
Yeah, that's what it is. The lifestyle.
Yeah.
Have you experienced some funny things that might have happened when people were trying to get prepared and something didn't happen? They broke down, or anything stand out that was, wow, that was funny?
Well, on game day for myself, because every athlete I've ever played with, I always had their own means and way of prepping. And for me, the biggest thing for me, it started the night before. I often didn't sleep the night before a game. I just couldn't. And then play the game. It starts with your meal pre-game. You got to carb up and all the things we did back in those days anyway. But the thing is, for me, the biggest thing was the peak during the national anthem. I often cried during the national anthem, almost every game. But that was part of my routine, and that's how I had to play. I had to be an emotional player because I wasn't a great athlete physically. But you can make up with a lot with heart.
You just finding that out now?
I just found that out recently. Somebody had to tell me, Butcher, you were a shitty athlete. You know that? No, they're all great.
But it's every player is different, but we want every player to come into that dressing room, and we need him for 3 hours. And you can look around the dressing room, you can see, well, that guy, he never ready, he never wants to do nothing. Is he playing on the field, or is he just checking a spot? Maybe we should make a change and get somebody in there that wants to, because everybody's got to be on the same page on game day. You can't be walking around out there because you got a jersey on and don't do nothing. Like, you got to be ready to go. And it's a serious business.
Yeah. Well, when I coach D-line, for instance, I always, because that's a particular thing there where you cannot waste energy at the D-line position, right? Because you're often taking on two other men as larger and strong as you are. Okay, so often you have to be, I used to tell my boys, when you touch down, when you touch grass, turn the switch on. As soon as you hear that whistle, shut that switch off. Conserve your energy, okay? Because you gotta, and that's really, really important for these young guys to be able to do that. And it takes years to learn how to do that. Playing in a physical game like it is, I mean, it's a violent game. We're in between whistles, it's a violent game.
And did that help you going into the professional leagues here in Canada?
It did. That's the one thing I'm really fortunate in. Like I say, I basically stopped for a coffee with the Eskimos, 3 years there and stuff. But I took away from the Huskies, the Eskimos more than anything, is having played with some fantastic leaders. Okay, and I studied these guys as I was with them, as I was their teammate and stuff. They don't know I'm studying them, but I'm thinking, wow. But guys like the Warren Moods, the Dan Kepleys, the Dave Cutlers, all of them, right? Mm-hmm. And these fellas. I got a quick little story here for my first game I dressed for at Commonwealth Stadium. Okay, and for me I was full of emotion because, in 1978 I was working in the Ironworkers Union. And Commonwealth Stadium was built in 1978. Just coincidentally, I happened to be in the Ironworkers Union, and I put all those handrails up all those stairs in there.
That's why they're all crooked.
I put them all in and plumbed all those stuff and routed them all in.
Now, they were done properly back then, Bob. He can't control what happened since that time.
So just to give you the apple. So then here I am. I'm dressed, of course, pregame jitters and everything. We're all, everyone's heading into the urinals to quickly try to see if you can drain. Anyway, Cuddy comes in. I'm standing at a urinal, and often you have to stand there for a while because, you're pretty hyped up. Cuddy comes in, he's standing, and he's a joker, right? Cuddy always joking. But, he come in, and on his face for the first time, he wasn't joking. He turned to me and said, Butch, when you step out those doors, he says, take it all in. Take it all in because you'll never have a first game ever, eh? Mm-hmm. So... And we stepped out there, and I think we were playing against Toronto Argonauts. It was over 60,000 in the stadium that day. I remember that, the attendance.
Yeah.
And that was pretty electrifying, man. I tell you, the energies and stuff. you know, after that national anthem, I did my cry, and then next thing I knew, man, I was just jacked, hey, because,
Absolutely.
you know, I tackled the running back along the sideline. He was on a, I don't know, they punted to us or something. I can't remember, but anyway, I took him down along the sideline and in front of our bench, and it was just such a fantastic feeling, you know, to
Yes.
have been there with.
And that's that camaraderie that,
Yeah,
that we're
yeah.
talking about when
Yeah.
people are all firing on all cylinders.
Yeah. Boy, you need that.
Oh, Hector, or Leo Blanchard there, he was one. Leo was one at halftime. If you know, you weren't pulling your weight there, Leo, he'd mark it. He'd let you. The guys will let you know, if you got to do this, you got to do that, whatever. I mean,
Good.
But again, we're all working to the common goal.
Absolutely. And Eagles aside, you know, it's not about you.
Yeah.
It's not about even just your line. It's about the team.
About the team.
Yeah.
The whole team.
Absolutely. So speaking of team, you know, if you've been out of the action for a while, or you know, you've turned the reins over to the next generation and things of that nature, what are some of the things that you really miss about being around or in football that you could do again if you had the opportunity?
Well, for me, I was always down to clubhouse every day,
Mm-hmm.
and I knew everything. And
Mhm.
of course, I was working there basically. And then when I went through my when I got cancer, not to be down there, but yet in the back of my mind, I kept saying, I got to get back down there, you know, as if they need me. But it was a drive that I had. I missed it so much. It was unbelievable.
Wow.
And it helped me. You know, geez, I'm getting better. I'm going to be able to go down there and see the boys and see what's happening. But for me, football was huge. And your friends you got there, you can't buy friends.
No.
You know, you can't go to Safeway and give me a bag full.
I have. Go ahead. I'm sorry about that.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say how I have a thing that you know, and I would like to share this with you. So May 27, 2023. Okay, I'm a big man. I was going out for my first round of golf that season. 3 of my retired
Heaven
buddies.
forbid.
We're going out for lunch at Legends Golf Course, and then we're going for a round of golf. Hey, I was on cloud 9, right? Beautiful day, sunny out, everything. On Argyle, a guy decided, by the name of Parrish Danwich, he decided to road rage assault me, and he beat me while I was sitting in my wife's car.
I remember that.
Yeah, and he gave me a skull fracture and a concussion because I was still sitting in my wife's car. Well, what happened, you know, he raced ahead, cut off both lanes, and all of a sudden he's charging my vehicle. And I thought, oh my God, I swung the door up and just turned sideways, still sitting. They kicked the door closed on my right knee. I had to have the knee replaced. He come around the door while I'm still sitting there, commenced to just beating the left side of my temple and head here, you know, resulting in the skull fracture and concussion. Okay, but you know what? That drove me down because then they diagnosed me with that post-traumatic stress disorder. I spiraled down I didn't even get through that week. I'd spiraled down. I never left my dark room, and I watched the ceiling fan go around for 1 month straight. And you know what? And I was suicidal. You know what got me out of that my room? Friends like Ron McIntyre, Larry Tibble, they all knew I was struggling mentally there with the post-traumatic and suicidal and everything.
Mm-hmm.
They got me out. It was my alumni brothers that pulled me out of the dredges that I was in at the time.
Yeah.
And, you know, and like I said, again, Bobby and I, we're both cancer survivors, and the support we get from our brothers, it keeps me going. It's just that important to us.
Those are the life lessons that you're taking with you that last that long.
Yeah.
And you're not only enjoying it, but I think, speaking on your behalf, I would say that you're looking forward to other people experiencing the same.
Yeah.
Because to share those secrets of life and the life skills that you have is important, not just for you, but it's important for the next generation of people that, we talked a little bit about how players are different now and expectations and all that stuff. But I would argue as well, on top of that, they still have the same needs that all of us do.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And
No
that's
question.
friendship, that's support. Yeah.
I think as alumni, it's our responsibility to show the generations that are graduating and stuff, players and stuff, and how important and what a good feeling it is that you get when you give back.
Yeah.
You know, especially when you're helping people. Like, you know what? There's a lot of young men I find, and they really need some older men just to give them some direction.
For sure.
You know, share some of their stories, and maybe they can get something out of it. And you know, just communication is a fantastic thing, boy. And we got to keep it open for all generations to come.
Absolutely. Good, really good points. Bob, you're about to become a member of the Huskies Hall of Fame at the upcoming gala, May 10th.
Yes.
May 10th. What legacy are you hoping to leave as a person who's now joining that group of members of Hall of Fame? What do you want people to remember?
Well, the clubhouse was huge for me, and also our first championship. All the stuff we had to do to get it, just everything. But do it right.
Yeah.
Be first. You want to be first class whatever we do, and I harp that all the time, and I hope it still stays with the Huskies, and they still try to keep everything nice and treat players how to dress. Like all that to me is really important. And I used to hound at guys if your shirt wasn't tucked in or you didn't look like a Husky, you know. I hope that they keep that tradition going.
It's the little things, you know.
The little
it does
things
make a difference. Yeah.
The journey, regardless of wins or losses, you are coming back the same way you always do.
Yeah. And you're a Husky. You got to think. Always remember that. Yeah. You know.
Clarence, a little earlier, you asked about if there was a particular thing that you could. And the one thing, when I walked up from the basement of the old clubhouse, I looked back down the stairwell, and I'd spent five seasons there. Eh? I lived down there. And above the stairwell in black Sharpie, I wrote, "Once a Husky, always a Husky."
Yeah.
And to this day, I still I'll send out emails to other alumni and stuff, and that's what I finish off with. Once a Husky, always a Husky.
Would that be your favorite quote?
I think it probably is. It probably is for me because, like I said, it was the final thing. That was my final signature I did in the old clubhouse before it was all demolished, right? So.
Well, I better not catch you running in the new clubhouse.
Writing on the walls.
Yeah, in the washroom above the urinal.
Bob, what's your favorite quote that you've heard from a coach, a player, or a movie, or something like that it stands out and it makes a difference for you?
I don't know. I'd have to think about that one. I don't know.
Put it this way. In a championship game, whether it be before the game or at halftime, what are some of the good things that a coach needs to emphasize to the players before they step on that field?
McLean, when we were playing for the first Little Grey Cup, he'd always say, "All right, you mother, let's get going." You know, and it was always that. And if you didn't hear that, "Let's get going," you know, you say, "Holy Christ, what's going on here?"
Yes.
You kind of expected it.
Yes, it gave you permission to go forward.
Yeah. That was.
It's a pillar.
Well, we used to giggle a little bit. We say, "Well, Mike's going tonight." You know, he's revved up.
Good. And if he is, then the players
goes down the line.
And if the players are, so are the support staff.
Yeah.
And if the support staff are there, the crowd is the same.
Yeah.
And they're showing that, demonstrating it, and living it, executing well.
I always liked it myself too when coaches would basically tell the players, you know, give them permission, tell them, have fun. It's okay to have fun. You know, this is still called a game. Okay. And, you know, and some of the other real important things in life and death, everything else, you know, you have to learn to appreciate, when you can, appreciate the wins. And when I say the wins, it can be anything in life that's going to, you know, make you feel good about yourself, about people around you, about anything like that. At this stage of my life, I tell everybody, if that's what makes you happy, do it. If it doesn't hurt anybody else, okay, and doesn't hurt yourself, do what's going to make you happy at this stage of life. Because in the end, that's all we're here for. We want to have a nice, happy life, right?
Yep.
So
good. And thanks to you, fellas, and the investment and the time and the countless hours of volunteer effort and leadership that you've shown to the Huskies. I think that we're in a good spot. And this year we have some new coaches. We have some new atmosphere. We have some strategies coming up. And I don't think the league even is close to understanding what they're going to see this year. I think we're going to see that in the stands. I think the entertainment that we're providing for the fans that come out, both on the field and off the field, are going to be terrific. I think the alumni is going to continue to grow thanks to your leadership as well. And I'm looking forward to hearing all the good stories that might be told on the May 10th gala coming up. And any last words?
No, I like thank you for getting me out here. I appreciate it, especially the work you're doing for the Huskies.
Thank you. Well, fellas, we'll look forward to seeing you on the field.
I would like to have a little reach out and shout out here to all my alumni that have not shown up at home games yet. I'm looking forward to you coming out to all our home games at JP Bowl. We're up to about 25 of us old alumni. We all sit together up in the bleachers together. And isn't it a wonderful thing being a fellow that worked in the brewing industry for 29 years that they now serve beer at the games or pops. And I will be more than happy to buy you guys a beer or a pop, whichever you choose.
Great.
Come on out. Bye. Thanks.
All right. We'll have a good season this year, guys, and we'll look forward to seeing you both on and off the field.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.